name is Jacqueline Thompson.
Good evening, my name is Stanley Evans Ii.
My name is Untitled Chapter.
Greetings, my name is Regine Swanson and I've been a student of architecture at Famu for the last 4 years.
Currently a graduate student studying architecture at FIU.
Currently a second-year graduate student at the University of Miami School of Architecture.
I am the program manager for FIU's Miami Beach Urban Studios.
I am Black.
I am a professional.
I'm a student.
And yes, it all matters.
The goal of today's panel is to have real conversations regarding race and the studio atmosphere or the education system. We have 5 very exceptional panelists joining us this evening in our discussion on the Black collegiate experience. And our hope is that this conversation can act as a guide or resource to those devoted to diversifying both our profession and our academics. This is our 3rd episode, and it is hosted in part by BAM Orlando, BAM Miami, NOMA Orlando, NOMA Miami, AIA Orlando, AIA Miami, and the OFA. I want to start today by thanking both our panelists and our participants for joining us this evening. We will be holding our conversation for approximately an hour with a 30-minute Q&A afterward. So thank you again for joining us, and help me introduce our panelists. First, I'd like to introduce Ms. Jacqueline Thompson. She's the program manager of Florida International's Miami Beach Urban Studios, where she oversees the CARTA Innovation Lab. Her work involves collaborating with the community on 3D printing with projects that span across multiple disciplines, including architecture, interior design, music, and medical aid. As an avid advocate for the Americans with Disabilities Act, Jacqueline is constantly seeking avenues to implement universal design, propel independent living, and showcase efficient and effective innovation at the intersection of urban planning and 3D modeling and design. Jacqueline holds an associate's in urban planning from the University of Technology in Jamaica, as well as a Bachelor of Science in Interior Design from FIU. Thank you, Jackie, for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And next, I'd like to introduce you to our second panelist is Stanley Evans II. He's currently an intern at the Miami Center for Architecture and Design through the AIA Miami. He's a graduate student studying architecture at Florida International University and previously holds master's degrees from, in hospitality management with a specialization in real estate and development from Florida International University. His favorite quote is, "What's important always gets done." Thank you, Stanley, for joining us tonight.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Next, we have Professor Andrew Chen. Joining us he is the Associate Dean at the Florida A&M University, School of Architecture and Engineering Technology. Chen is tenured associate professor and has taught at FAMU since 1991.
Great, thank you, Bianca. It's great to be here.
And next we have Regine Swanson, currently a 4th-year undergraduate student pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Architectural Studies at FAMU School of Architecture and Engineering Technology. Aside from school, she operates as an intern at B. Frank Studios in Tampa, Florida, in conjunction with the Property Management Office at FAMU. Her favorite quote is, "Don't put a question mark where God put a period." Thank you for joining us, Regine.
Thank you for having me.
And last but not least is Nonyelam Ogbodo. She is currently a 2nd-year graduate student completing the dual degree programs of the Master of Real Estate Development and Urbanism with a focus in sports venue development and a Master of Science in Architecture with a focus in resilient, sustainable architecture to combat climate change. At the University of Miami, Nonyelam currently serves as the chartering president of NOMAS, the Graduate Student Association Senator for Architecture, and a general member of USBGC and Alpha Rho Chi. And off campus, Nonyelam is currently marketing and publications chair for NOMA South Florida. So as you can see, all of our panelists today hold great reputations amongst our industry and also within our Florida institutes here. And so we're just grateful to have all of them. And so I believe first and foremost, It's important that we understand each other at the human level by acknowledging that while we all have various backgrounds and diverse experiences, we all are involved somehow in architecture and education to some capacity. So I'd like to introduce or ask the three students who are with us this evening, Regine, Stanley, and Nonyelam, to talk about their experiences with their individual universities. Regine at an HBCU, Stanley, who attends a predominantly Hispanic university, and then Nonyelam, who is at a predominantly white university. Regine, can you talk to us about your experience at FAMU?
Okay, I guess to highlight my experience, I originally picked it because I wanted to see more people that look like me succeed and be in that environment. So my experience has been really like, it feels like home. It feels like I never really left Tampa because I'm with people who are around me and they want, me to see, they want to be better. They want to do better for their community. And I have the same kind of view. So coming to FAMU was really like joining a family. To be corny, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think I wouldn't have been here where I was today if I didn't choose the HBCU route.
And so in contrast, Nonyelam, can you talk to us about your experience at University of Miami?
So first off, I didn't realize how non-diverse Miami was until I got there, because the one or two people that I did know that went to University of Miami were Black, but of course they're athletes. And my first day of orientation, I saw one other Black person, not Black girl, not Black guy, one other Black person, which was a girl who, a student that's majoring in urban design. So I knew that I was the only one in my particular program, being Masters of Real Estate Development and Architecture, and I knew I was never going to see her. Throughout the semester and the school year, I never saw her, and I was literally the only person, not only on campus, but off campus as well. So whenever we would travel, we would go to networking events, it's just, you can literally count in the room how many Black people there were. So it was definitely overwhelming. But it's also rewarding as well, because I then started to become the go-to person for cultural insight or just different things that people weren't used to understanding because they weren't used to being around Black people. So of course, after joining NOMA, my second year around, I started to see more Black people, students that were in classes either ahead of me or classes behind me, to where I didn't feel alone anymore. So my initial experience was definitely overwhelming, but my current experience is definitely rewarding now.
That's awesome that over time, more and more diversity started to emerge in your classes. And so Stanley, I know you described for us that your campus is rather segregated by the different colleges or the different disciplines. And so can you talk to us about your current experience at FIU?
Yes, definitely. I enjoy the diversity at FIU. Yes, our college is basically on the other side of campus. Within the actual campus of FIU, we're on the other side, as in it's separated from all the other small colleges on the specific campus. The fact that diversity-wise, all of our professors are mainly Hispanic, which kind of goes into the curriculum a little bit, as in getting different president studies from Hispanic cultures and Hispanic architects is a big thing during studio. And also just me being like one of the only Black kids in the program. There are about, I say 10 other Black kids that I know of in the program as well. But myself, I try to get involved as much as possible and kind of be that voice of diversity within the student organizations, and trying to be as vocal outside of school as well to represent the diverse culture of FIU.
That's awesome. And so I think one interesting thing to note is that Regine is saying she has kind of found her family. She feels very comfortable and supported where she's at. But in speaking with older architects who attended FAMU years prior, they noted that that wasn't always the case, and actually that it used to be predominantly white in the College of Architecture as well. And so I think one important thing that both Nonye and Stanley have touched on is the importance of mentorship. And so I know Regine spoke to us privately about how when she began her journey into architecture during high school, she felt that there was a lack of diversity, and she started with a few of her other Black peers while in high school, and that they maybe fell to the wayside, and she felt she needed to be her own role model. But I wanted to ask Andrew or Jackie if they could speak on the importance of being an advocate or a mentor for students like Regine who maybe don't see themselves in the profession.
Sure. I think it's important. While many faculty have to, be conscious and be aware that places may turn you into the Black expert and tell you to mentor everybody so they don't have to deal with it. But I think everyone also needs to recognize, if you're Black faculty or Black graduate student, just how you carry yourself when you're in the building, how you produce your work, speaks to all the other students who are looking at you, whether they're Black or white. I think, though, that many of us, though, had mentors and role models that didn't look like us. I was blessed to have a gentleman, Carl Thorne, around, but I also had an incredible professor named Maylee Foster. And I think there are people around you all the time that can help you understand your next step and continue to look for someone that sees what's possible in you. That's really what matters. And keep your ears open for their suggestions.
Yes. And even with me, I was also very blessed to have a mentor who was a fellow Jamaican, and he opened my eyes to just make sure that I was on track. In my department, when I was at school, I was just one of two persons of color in my class through our program. And it's just funny that you didn't feel a sense of kinship within the classroom setting, and you'd always have to struggle between being understood and not being not appreciated, because when you're trying to present, people not listening to your accent kind of thing. But along the way, I've also had another professor who's been very, even to this day, stands as a mentor to me, and always has my back. So it's funny, sometimes you don't have to look within your race, within your culture. It's just who lends themselves to you, and who you have that bond with, and who has your best interests at heart. That's the way you'd want to go for them to lead you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very important to note that your mentor may not always have the same experiences or look like you, but that they can still be an advocate for your success academically and professionally. And so I wonder if we could talk about the ways that we as students or as those in the profession can help seek out someone looking for mentorship, or if we can advise students ways that they should be reaching out, like Stanley and Nonye and Regine as well. I know you talk about the different organizations that you're involved with. So Stanley, can you describe for us how you seeked out your mentors, or how these organizations have helped you excel in your academia?
Yes, definitely. I've heard this quote, I say last year, where someone wrote down, where if you want to be something, find out who's doing it right now and get connected with them, because they obviously has a successful way to get there. So by joining different organizations such as SoFlo Noma, being a part of that and being able to be connected with the mentorship there, that really helped me out big time with exposure, helped me big time with schoolwork as well. And also just giving me an idea that there are diverse architects in this industry, and that they do special work and they do amazing work within the South Florida area. So just being connected with SoFlo Noma, and then also help through SoFlo Noma, starting FIU Nomas again on campus was amazing, because a lot of students didn't know that there were diverse architects in the South Florida area. So being able to help them out as well was a very big helpful moment for a lot of kids on campus. So I definitely recommend anyone just reach out to local organizations in the area, the local AIA. Just try to get involved. LinkedIn is very helpful as well, because these mentors are definitely going to help you after school with jobs and internships and things of that nature.
That's true. So even if maybe your campus doesn't have their own NOMAS chapter, you can reach out to other local chapters in the surrounding areas and figure out how to start your own, correct?
Exactly. That would be great.
And so, Regine, you are part of Alpha Rho Chi, correct?
Yeah, I'm the
Talk to us
president.
about your experience there.
So Alpha Rho Chi is like one of the few organizations I joined on campus, especially because I'm in architecture. It kind of made it hard to branch out of architecture. So it's kind of nice to like get a good solid group of friends that they're not like just friends, they're like professional. They're pushing you to be more professional, and they, you know, you get more connections through it. So with Alpha Rho Chi, they, you know, they kind of teach you to like, you know, put your back up, put your back straight, speak up, you know, be clear about what your project is and how to network with, you know, professionals that you want to be just like. As for mentorship, you know, you kind of get assigned one from like your personality. Mine right now, my big right now is Darius, and that's my guy, because you know, you learn mentorship is not just like who they can connect you with. It's someone that like will check on you to make sure that you're okay, that you're doing all right, if things are going like you're going south. Because like I don't always need a business connection. I need somebody who, other than my mom, is gonna check in on me because they see I look like I haven't slept in a couple of days. So
yeah,
I think Alpha Rho Chi was one of those things, a little brotherhood, that made it really clear that like the business connections in general are more than just business, and they need to be more. They need to fulfill you, and you need to be able to get back into it. Like without a mentorship, without his mentorship, I would not have felt like I was equipped enough to be the president this year. So like things like that, it's like they kind of see potential in you and they kind of push you towards it. So I really appreciate my organization for doing that for me.
I love that. And then Nonya, can you talk to us about your involvement with AIA? So Stanley kind of went over the NOMAS portion.
Well, I'm not AIA. Stanley's AIA. I know Alpha Rho Chi as well, but I will say Stanley and I did have the conversation about how the different organizations vary per school. Like at FAMU, the head honcho student organization is Alpha Rho Chi, and then at FIU it is AIA. No, I'm sorry, NOMA. In our school, it's AIA.
Okay,
but I'm actually not in AIAS because I do feel like it is, it's very crowded in AIAS at my school because it's so big. So I just kind of felt like I wouldn't get like what I'm getting from NOMAS. Gotcha. And with NOMAS, I initially I was introduced to the entire NOMA brand through June Grant, who is the president of NOMA in San Francisco. And I wrote a letter, just went out on a limb, wrote a letter. It's just like, oh, I want to do this at UM. And they're essentially like, well, if you want to do it, you got to start it. So that's how I ended up starting it at UM. And ever since then, the response has been incredible. I've been able to secure the winning bid to design the first commemorative site on the UM campus for Black people, the first Black graduates of University of Miami. And with that, we've gotten a lot of community support. We've gotten a lot of support from our deans, who's extremely powerful in the world of architecture, Dean Rudolph Elkery. And on top of that, we've also secured so many different partnerships with the other student organizations. So just to piggyback off of the mentorship thing, like it's great to have mentors. Like I know I myself and Stanley, we're graduate students. So not only do we have mentors, but we're also mentors for other people as well. And I'm, a firm believer in lift as you climb. So that has been an extremely rewarding experience with NOMAS at UM. And then I'm also in USGBC. And for people who don't know what USGBC is, that is the US Green Building Council. And that is along the lines of my path of being LEED certified. So that is the energy efficient buildings. Those are the green buildings, the sustainable buildings, the resilient buildings, and different things of that nature. And I joined that because that one is directly, they don't have a student chapter or student segment and then a professional segment. It's one big segment. So you have students rubbing shoulders with the people who are certifying these huge buildings to be LEED certified. So my experience with the organizations on campus, it's like a domino effect. So it's like, I feel like, and I was telling Stanley this the other day, I felt like once I got into NOMA, I joined one organization and I felt like I joined 10 organizations with it, because it's just so many different connections. Like someone said LinkedIn. I, connected with our local NOMA chapter, and I saw their connections with different companies. Like, for example, my dream is to go to Populous. For those who don't know what Populous is, it's a really big sports development architecture firm. And I've been able to connect with them based on my connections in NOMA of just common friends and common employers, common professors, and things of that nature. People don't realize how powerful LinkedIn really is.
Yeah. And so I think noting the organizations that you all are talking about, like the benefit isn't just being a part of them, but then that you're contributing, and then also that it's reciprocal. You are also getting the benefit from being a part of them and meeting these other people. Stanley, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to comment on what she was saying. At FIU, the biggest organizations is FIU NOMAS, which I'm super proud of. And the second biggest one is ASLA, which is a landscaping architects organization. So I feel definitely honored to be part of FIU NOMAS and being big, and we just started back up. So I think that's an honor to have. But also touching on mentorship, it's okay to have multiple mentors as well. So at SoFlo NOMA, I have Craig and Naomi. AIA, I have Miss Cheryl Jacobs. I have fraternity brothers that are mentors. I have the MBUS leads, and with Miss Jackie and Regina. So I have multiple organizations that I'm part of, and I have mentors in each one of them, and they stay on top of me whenever I'm feeling a type of way. They call and check up on me, things of that nature. It's good to have a community like that, because it's very uplifting. When you feel down, or school is going, it's a real hassle on you. It's good to have that feedback and that networking opportunity to just lean on, for sure.
I mean, and that community or that village or that support network is going to evolve for different chapters and moments in your life. So, certain people are key mentors at certain moments when you're a student, and certain people are going to be incredible mentors as you move to your next step and your next big thing and the next big thing after that. And they know it, but they appreciate and they're a true mentor if they are proud of you, and not trying to grab and hold you back.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ms. Jackie.
I have to totally agree to what Stanley was saying regarding the architecture program, because not only the program is diverse in terms of the mentorship program and the different student groups that you guys can join, but the importance of having someone who has your back, or you knowing that someone has your back. And Regina referred to the fact that someone just calling aside from your parent to just see how you are. I have taken on that role, for want of a better word. It is nothing out of me just to check in on our students, just to make sure how they're doing. And it is surprising how many have come back to say it means so much to them. And so the different groups that you're joining, that's great. And it looks good on your resume. Making connections is great. But also we know that the load is very hard. It's a lot of work in architecture program. We know that. So sometimes you're stretching yourself so thin, joining the different groups, and especially if you're going to be on the board. But I also say make a simple connection with where you are with your professor. On our campus, I'm on the Miami Beach Urban Studios. We're a satellite office. And at our facility, we have student technicians that come in to help us run the 3D printing lab. But they don't just leave as someone who changes filaments and helps a student create their drawing, or send their file to print. By the time they're leaving there, they are able to run presentations. They're able to sit down with different clients who have projects that they want to see to fruition. And, our executive director can see the student's potential. Outside people reach out to him and ask him, do you know someone who can help me with this project? And then he, in return, because of just seeing the students and their capabilities and their willingness, he volunteers them, he offers the job to them. So it's like you say, it's a domino effect. If you put yourself out there, it will come back to you tenfold. And
Yeah.
we're a product of that.
Also, if I
That's
can
amazing.
add, the same energy you put towards your projects is the same energy you should put towards networking.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to note that you and Nonyelum, Stanley, both mentioned your mentors, but you guys having a conversation this week essentially acted as peer mentors, and neither of you noted that. But those are also the relationships that come from, you know, these organizations and the benefit of having different groups that you can pull from. So not only do these organizations help with connections and things like this, but one of the important aspects that we've been talking a lot about is scholarships and the scholarships that these organizations can offer. And I think it's important to kind of ask the students, how are you going about financing your education, and have scholarships played an integral role in that? Regine, I think it'd be nice for you to describe for us the way that you're doing that.
Okay, so how am I financing school? So I get scholarships. I tend to get, I guess, more merit scholarships, more like I'm being recognized, and therefore scholarship money is being given to me. I have maybe officially gotten 1 or 2 scholarships that I actually applied for. So every time, you know, people are saying like, there's scholarships, they're out there, you just have to do them. I have gotten 2 in my entire matriculation through college and high school. So I think when it comes to scholarships, it's really important to like work really hard so that like basically the scholarships come to you, and so that you can apply for them, because again, it feels like sometimes, you know, we get told, especially when we're applying for college, like, do these scholarships, there's scholarships everywhere. And so I think sometimes we're just not looking in the right place. And I think it's a little bit exhausting when you do scholarship after scholarship and you don't hear anything, or you get a denial letter, and then you're wondering, like, now you have to take out loans. Like I have loans this year. You know, I've had to take out loans because I didn't get enough scholarships, and it's not a failure on my part. I think what's really helped me, especially going to FAMU, is that the School of Architecture really helps, and they make sure you stay in school. You know, I've gotten a scholarship from FAMU Architecture at least every year, you know, based one that everybody gets, it's merit-based. And like, I think if I didn't get scholarship, or if I didn't get any kind of money, I would be a lot more stressed about being and staying in school. Like, scholarships is kind of giving me the outlook that, okay, maybe I can go get a second master's or another degree, because I am not stockpiling debt. That's really my opinion on, like, you know,
Well, I think it's important for you to note that this isn't a failure on your part if you don't actually obtain a scholarship, but it's important to note that the cost of an architecture education is very expensive. And so you're trying to obtain this thing that's prestigious, and, you know, you want to go to the best schools, and scholarships help you do that. And so, Stanley, I know that you have talked about the extensive amount of energy that you put into scholarships, and how sometimes that can maybe not come to fruition or not end up the way that you expect. But talk to us about your experience with scholarships.
Yeah, so starting the grad program last year, right when I started, a lot of people were just sending me different scholarship links, and it was very overwhelming with the amount of scholarships that are out there. But I didn't have anything under my belt developed yet, so I couldn't really apply. But I had that motion in mind throughout school. So when I'm approaching studio work, I kind of design towards, you know, these scholarship details. So like, I know what the scholarships are looking for in this project or that project. So I kind of design in that manner throughout studio. So I was fortunate enough to win my first scholarship this year through AIA Miami, and I'm super blessed I got that, because it definitely helped out financially for me. But our school offers every spring, they send out different scholarship opportunities within the school. AIA Miami has a lot of scholarships as well. SoFlo Noma has just started their scholarship program for Black students in the South Florida area. So everybody, like I said, that network, everybody is just sending me scholarships all the time throughout the year. So it's a blessing to have that, so that I can know that throughout school, I can just go towards them, as well as making a side note of different things that these scholarships need, as in recommendation letters, as in your resume, your portfolio, just having that tucked away on the side, so that whatever scholarship you do apply for, you just plug it in and just change a few words here and there. So it's a very useful tool to have that on the side.
So Stanley's got a system. So if you need any help with your scholarship applications, reach out to Stanley and he can help you. But
Definitely, I'm willing to help.
Andrew, can you talk to us about the scholarships that FAMU offers for your program?
Sure, and I just reminded me that I owe Rihanna a letter for her recommendation. So Rihanna, I'll get it to you. I think you know what the students are describing is really, you know, their priorities and their concerns, and in many schools, and you know, we have a variety of architecture programs in the state of Florida, and there's space for all kinds of programs, and all those programs should have, you know, diverse priorities. And for some, the most important thing is being ranked number whatever in terms of their undergraduate program. I mean, at FAMU or at my school right now, our biggest priority is making sure these students who grind and get their work done can get their 4-year degree in 4 years. That, you know, it shouldn't be a matter of, can I afford to go to school? It's a matter of, can I do the work? So we need for all these Black and brown students to do everything we can at our place to remove the financial burden. People shouldn't be crunching 20, 30 hours at Home Depot or Walmart when they have projects due. So, you know, our priority is, you know, making sure 100% of the graduate students have an assistantship, making sure our Caribbean, Latin American students get in-state tuition, you know, and if you're an undergraduate student like Regine, and you have, you know, excellent work, we're gonna remind you by giving you some form of financial support, because it, you know, and I don't think it's about the dollar amount, it's about letting these students know we care. We care about that. We don't want you to walk out of here with a ton of debt, and you're doing it. You can do this thing and keep knocking it out. So it's just, you know, different priorities at different places.
Yes, and even for us at Miami Beach Urban Studios, what we do, well, Stanley is a candidate for our LEADS program, so he can attest 100% to the LEADS program. But we do offer, we have payment schedules for students. If they work with a client and help with a project, they can set up a time to work separately with an outside person, and they get paid that way. We only have students work only 20 hours for the week. Of course, like Andrew, you know, the priority is to go to school, so not having to worry about trying to pay for their apartment or trying to pay for books. But we do know that it's expensive. So any way we can, any opportunity that we can, the door that opens, we try to see how we can match a student to a prospective client so that they can help them with a 3D printed project. Could be something as simple as even rendering. And we do have other, one of the most important aspects with piggybacking what Stanley said is preparation. Because if you have to do, you're going to apply for all these scholarships, and then, you know, you don't want to say, "Woe is me, I didn't get it," because sometimes it may be just someone who just has one more item on the list to check off that box, and they got it over you. But preparation is key. You want to always update your resume. You always want to update your models. You always want a copy of the models at least, you know. So we always say, you know, preparation is half of the battle. And so by the time when that one scholarship comes available or something, you know, something comes on the table, you don't even have to second guess it and take your time off from doing your assignments. You just, you know, send it in. So, you know, with that, we also always encourage the students through their pairing with, you know, with outside the community. But we also just, like, again, I'm stressing, when you make yourself relevant, when if we ask for something to be done, you're always there. When we have any type of symposium, concert even, you know, you attend. You want to be a part of it. Volunteering even initially, because you're surprised how after you volunteer today, it works out to you having 2 weeks, two hours next week, to by the time next semester you're on board. You know, and it's surprising that, you know, one person knows you, then your reputation gets around, and then you're the go-to person. And it's very funny. Connections. Put yourself out there, and everything else will just be gravy. You just fall right into it.
Andrew touched on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I was going to talk to you, Nanyam, because Andrew spoke on not only that this is a costly education, but also it's very labor intensive and there's a lot of hours put into it. And Nonya, you mentioned how sometimes you just feel you don't have the time to even apply because the scholarships require so much material from you.
Yeah, so in terms of financing school, we all know University of Miami it is a private school. So with that, it's private school, big tuition, and it's a lot. And I'm gonna go out and say it that it's about $100,000 a semester. A school year, but I believe that's the graduate. The $100,000 is graduate. So last year, as a real estate development student, it was about $100,000, and then now as an architecture student, it's about $80,000 or so. Originally, I applied to 7 schools, which was Columbia, Fordham, Pratt, University of Maryland, and Georgetown, and and Miami as well, and I'm missing one, St. John's. And of the 7, Miami was the most, but in the same token, they were also the only ones that offered me some sort of financial relief to where I'm getting 30% per semester. So prior to moving to Florida, I made sure that I showed up to work every single day, worked as much overtime as I possibly could, because I knew that once I got here that, with school, it'll be difficult to work, and things, these projects, fabrication, model building, printing, regular printing on a piece of paper, large pieces of paper is expensive. Yeah. So I say all that to say is I'm looking at everyone applying for their scholarships, and I am inspired to Stanley and Regine, you guys inspire me to start applying for scholarships, because whatever I haven't been able to pay for, or whatever isn't covered by, my scholarship, I have student loans, and it's a lot, which is why I mentioned earlier, yes, I am in DMs of Populous, HOK, HKS, I am in all of their DMs, hey guys, what do I need to do to make sure,
I think people who haven't studied architecture in school, they don't understand the amount of material you might need, and along with books and the other objects, but the actual physical building materials, and then you need the software for your computers. You need the computer that can handle the software. And I know Regine was talking about at FAMU, they kind of have a pool of resources that they all pull from in terms of material and things like that for the studio atmosphere.
Yeah. So, I remember my first day in class, and I received a 8x11 piece of paper with, size 11 font and all of the materials that they
list.
And I remember just calling my mom and being like, Mom, she said that we need this by the next class, and I don't have a car. And so I just remember the initial really struggle, because you didn't, and I don't know why I didn't know, because I took high school, in high school I took architecture, and I had to buy a $75 bag of material, $1 bag of materials. Mm-hmm. And it was already prepared, but it was $75 off rip. So I think it was just so shocking. And then you get to know people, people who have cars. And so you're like, well, if you're going to Michael's, I would like to go to Michael's. And it's kind of you kind of work with each other, because you're all in the same place. If someone's project isn't looking good because they couldn't get the material, but you had it, you kind of feel bad. It's not a competition, but these are your peers. You want to, if that you're eating, you want them to eat. So it's kind of with FAMU, I think we're really good with community, intra-community. If you can see I have some scraps and you need it, I'm probably going to give it to you. I think especially with the computer aspect, I've had more than a few nights where my computer just doesn't want to do what I need it to do. Yeah. And our architecture, the building is open before COVID, it was open 24/7. You can be in there all night, and they have a computer lab that anybody, if you have a key fob, can use, and they have, most of the programs. Some people, if you need a specific program, can get that program for free for you. So it's like it's a network.
Keep that on the low. Keep that on the low. Keep that.
Yeah,
On the low.
we
But
won't
at
share that
University
here.
of Miami, they, I guess somewhere down the line, it could have been, I think Naomi, I wish she was here. She said she couldn't make it today. Somewhere in Naomi's class, and she was at the School of Architecture of Miami, they were able to, I guess, push this to administration. So, you know, when you have your different school fees, your activity fees, your campus fee, your this, and all these little fees that add up to, well, in my case, the $100 grand. They added in our programs to that. They added in our materials into that. They added in our printing into that, to where essentially we don't pay for our programs, they're free. But I think that's something that most schools should do. And now that I'm listening to you two, or more so you, Regine, I didn't realize that every school wasn't doing that.
No, they don't.
They don't.
A lot of times it's on the students to actually pay for that. And I think that touches on the notion of equity, right? Regine's talking about not having a car. What if you don't have access to the computer? And so you receive the grant or scholarship for tuition, but you still have to consider that architecture studies require the material and all of this extra expense that isn't necessarily going to be covered by scholarship.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. With ours, we have different, just this last 2019 school year, we've had 2 new labs open. So we have our Murphy lab that opened, which has 3D printing, large scale printing, and a laser cut. And then we also have our Fab lab. I'm sorry, the Fab lab has a 3D printing. And then we also have a wood shop as well. We also have it to where on campus, like when they're doing construction on campus, you can go to these construction sites and get these materials and use them and take them to the Fab lab, cut them, do whatever you need to do with them. So it's just I definitely recommend being resourceful on top of that, because once I saw my first year in printing where, you know, I didn't want to print at school because, you know, I'm tired, it's 3 a.m. A lot of people don't realize a common model will have you up for almost 24 hours and you're still nowhere near done. And it's just one of those things where you could push that, I guess in FAMU, you can push that towards administration to where you can have your activity fees, or I don't know how activity fees work at FIU or FAMU, but I, you know, went to the dean and was just kind of like, well, I'm never going to go into this wellness center. So can we shift this money to my printing costs? It's not fair that the architecture students have the same printing allocation money as the business students. So, or the communication students, where it's just like,
you're printing more frequently.
Yeah.
I think they try. I know this year we've got like free 11x17 printing, which is like something that professors typically, like if we're gonna do a submittal, they want it on 11x17. So that like you can see like they're trying, like, you know, we also have a Fab lab. You just have to make an appointment, and then like to print, you can get like X amount of printing, you know, the big sheets, I mean, for like $30 a year. I'm not sure. And it depends on how quickly you use it. So like they're definitely trying, and then, you know, you just got to, you know.
And some of it is $30 a year. And is it like, when you're printing, is it docking it? Because that's what ours does. When you swipe your card, it'll be like, oh, you have X amount of money left on your, like you
they just burn up as much printing as they want for $30.
Yeah, like that's how it should be.
Yeah, we have like a laser printer and we use it. I mean, anybody who works in the laser printer, they can help. Like if you have problems, they can help you. So like it's almost like, you know, I can help you do this if you can do this. So I barter.
We're in the studio atmosphere. Everyone helps one another.
But part of it is the Miami's a private school and all the other schools are public schools.
Yeah.
And for FIU, FAU, FAMU, USF, UF, for anyone to institute any kind of fees, it's a major issue. So as UM being a private school, they have more internal decisions and don't have to report to the same kind of state for those kind of fiscal.
That's why it's important that we have all of your perspectives here. Yeah. And so we kind of touched on resources and materials, but I know another.
Can I just jump in right here before you jump over?
Yeah, of course.
Because on MBOS, it's an acronym for Miami Beach Urban Studios. The students, our architectural students or design students pay a student fee, lab fee. So they can come over anytime and print, 3D print. They don't have to bring their own filament. We do have 2 jumbo plotters, 42, 36 and 42-inch plotters, and that they can print in color. Just have to come in, print, and sometimes even if they want a different type of a heavier weight paper, just let me know and I can order it. That all comes out of their student fees. And we have a laser cutter, and incidentally, we're just in the process of getting another laser cutter. So we do have the different options that the students just come in and have to and use the machines. And that's because, yes, you know, it does come out of that student lab fee that they have in place once they sign up and come to the program. And yeah, because it's very important. Many people do have the problem with sourcing the materials they need to make the different designs. And what we have also too is at the end of each semester, and we have all these materials left over, we'd open it out, leave it on the counter. Anyone can come and take what they need, you know, so it's almost like regurgitating, you know, using, you know, one person's trash, somebody else's treasure. You know, that's another way at least we can assist.
You'll never know, you know, you never know how great it is until you receive someone else's scraps and then you can make something from it. I think that's another benefit. So that's awesome that you actually host like the end of the year scrap party. Yeah, so we touched on resources and materials, but I think it's also important that we talk about the curriculum that we're currently learning in our studios. And so we talked about how we're typically given material or curriculum that's very Eurocentric. And often we find that the indigenous or minority cultures are only showcased in a portion of the material that we're reading in classes. And I want us to discuss how, like, the ways that learning about different cultures and different building techniques or methodologies from these other cultures can be beneficial to the studio atmosphere. Miss Jackie, did you want to touch on that?
Yes, I would. When I was a student, I had a design there. It was history of design, or history of design.
Yeah.
And pardon me?
History of design. That's right. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I was correct then. It's been a while, and to me, we learned about every other type of design in Europe, yes. And in the end of could have been a 30 chapter book, there was 3 pages letting me know about Native American, African, Asian design. You know, so to me, growing up doing my design in 1995, and I'm Sandy, you'll have to tell me if it has changed much now, but that is still the focus. That's what I saw as the norm, you know. And then the book again was also written. The women weren't categorized in the book. You know, we weren't lauded or anything. Just only heterosexual man's perspective and that's the person who wrote the book, you know. So gays weren't glorified, and we never saw anything about a woman, another gender. And so it's very funny now that the tables are turning, but it's very slowly turning. And so now, even when students have to study abroad, I'm yet to see a study abroad program to the Caribbean, you know, and we're just next door. I'd love to see a study abroad in Nigeria. You know, let's go outside of everybody going to Italy. You know, there are other places in the world that you can get a little better taste of somebody else's culture, that, you know, the skin is a little bit darker than the norm.
I agree with that. I'm actually, like, that's one of my goals, to push you know, study abroad not outside of, but to include other places. Our school, we don't even have South America. It's literally just Asia. So it's like, of course, Africa would be my big goal, and then, you know, Middle East, like me personally. And that brings me to my point. I, you know, have a class called Methods and Materials of Construction. And we were doing a chapter on masonry. And for those who don't know what masonry is, that is the brick building. So the brick and the concrete when you're creating the bricks. And there was a lesson plan where my professor shows, you know, his little PowerPoint or whatever the case may be. And he gave us this long spiel of, you know, there are places that can't really afford things and that are lower in the economy and things of that nature. So they're still making bricks by hand. So in my head, you know, it didn't really like dawn on my head. And I'm just like, okay, this man just described like the poorest of the poor to go make a ton of bricks by hand. So the photo comes up after he already went through the whole spiel, and it's an African woman, what it looked like to be making brick by hand. And of course, like I kind of sat and I looked at it and I was just kind of like, I don't know. Like I'm first generation Nigerian, and where we live, where our home is located in Nigeria, it's in the village area. There's actually a brick making company on our block, and it's not in an area. It's, you know, where my parents grew up. It's not in the like coolest area of Nigeria. It's not in the wealthiest area of Nigeria, and they were not using hand at all. And it infuriated me to see them see him depict Africa as a place that is just the poorest of the poor, and just we have to do things the way cavemen do it. And so I just, you know, I raised my hand politely, and I, you know, was just kind of asking. I was just kind of like, oh, well, you know, I told him just what I told you guys, like, well, I've seen people make bricks in the poorest of poor, well, I didn't see just the word poor, but the poorest areas, and they weren't using their hands at all, let alone a little bit to shift anything or whatever. I think the only time I saw them use their hand was to load a wheelbarrow or load a wheeler to move the bricks. And I was asking him, I was just kind of like, where is this? Because I don't think that's accurate. And he was just stuck. Like he was there, the photo wasn't labeled, there were no sources, there were no dates. Mind you, we're in 2020. So he was just like, well, I know in places like Uruguay, they do that. And in my head, I'm just like, why won't you show Uruguay? Because it's just a little systematic to where it's just like you're teaching essentially like when people think poor, they automatically go to Africa. And that's the most annoying thing in the world. So he was just like, well, in Uruguay, this, and the other. And then the next slide, it was somewhere, I think in the Middle Eastern portion of the globe, and he didn't show it. Like he didn't really show the slide. And then went back to the African one and was just like, oh, well, people are still doing it by hand in 2020. So I raised my hand, I brought up the discussion, and all you see in the Zoom chat are people applauding. Like I was just thinking that, like people were just like, yeah, I didn't think so. So I took it upon myself, researched the photo. Not only was it not a recent picture, it was like years ago, maybe 10 years ago. It was also, she was also not making bricks.
Yeah. I think that that's a result of recycling outdated material, because you know, most of our material is volume 15 or volume 28. And it's like while they're updating the information, they're not really, you know, it's still a take on the old information. It's still outdated. They're just kind of updating the language to reflect current, you know, the way that we currently speak or the way that we currently present ideas. But there actually needs to be some curriculum added where we're introducing modernization of different cultures. Andrew, can you touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, yeah, and the benefit of now of internet access to content is that there is no reason why people can't talk about Phil Freelon, David Ajayi, people like Huff and Gooden Architects in South Carolina, in Charleston, Mabel. You know, there's a number of people of color that are doing outstanding and interesting things, and there's no excuse for not including their presence in discussions of history and theory. And in many ways, it's just another example of how when old practices and old ways are recycled, they're really just recycling structural ways to tell people they don't belong. I think about when Regine says that an architecture school is going to hand you a list and say, you need to go buy all this stuff and have it by tomorrow. Essentially, they're saying if your parents don't have the credit cards to run up your debt, you don't belong. And if you don't have a car to zip out on your own and get it, and you got to ride the bus and you're on, hey, tough, you shouldn't be here. And, I mean, some, you can't say everything's conscious, but, there's ways that programs tell students you don't belong and we don't want you here.
Yeah. And I know you spoke about the NAAB accreditation process where quite the opposite. They do ask student or our board of students to come in and participate or engage with the selection of faculty. I know you said at FAMU that does occur, correct?
Well, yeah, so I'd suggest that none think about the experiences and all students of color across the state. Think about this experience you're having. And you can casually raise within your dean's council or whatever forum you have for students to talk about and suggest ways to improve the program and ask questions about how are we going to at least, we may not get to justice and equity, but can we get to diversity and inclusion? And if it's in a forum for students to have those conversations, and that's a message in itself. But step one is to see within your student organizations how you guys can bond with the other student organizations to have just generally voices heard from any student. And I think once you create that structure, then you can push the volume a little bit more and say, well, you know what, when are we going to have a program and an education that's more like that's more open and just and equitable?
Yeah. And Nonya was mentioning her peers may not look like her, but that they're all applauding her and they understand where she's coming from, so they can assist her in that initiative.
Yeah, so when we have lunch with the dean, and so lunch with the dean is when you meet with the dean and he literally will sit on Zoom with students. Most of the time it's student leaders, so the president of all the organizations, but it's open to all architecture students. And I brought it up, and there just so happened to be 2 other students in that class that were on the call as well, and definitely, chimed in and was of assistance to that. As well, but I think it's very powerful to be able to sit with the dean and tell him literally to his face, like, listen, this offended me and I didn't like it. So he supposedly is going back to the faculty meeting and letting them know, like, make sure you double cross your T's, double dot your I's, because students, if you're anything like me, I'm going to challenge you. Like, I'm going to challenge the professors and just do a fact check. Everything in this universe essentially can be fact checked. So the fact that I was able to just pull this up, go to Google and find out exactly what it is, it's just kind of like, now I question his entire curriculum.
Of course.
So
I don't want that.
So I did bring it to the attention of the dean, to where I'm just kind of like, wait a minute, we got to figure this out, because I don't know. And it wasn't just me. At first I thought it was just me. And then I saw it wasn't.
I could comment, if I can comment. For FIU, due to the tragic events of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor this summer, a lot of students gave feedback to the School of Architecture about the curriculum. And now every Friday we have this social committee that hosts meetings that are mandated that all the professors be on the Zoom call to hear the students' feedback on the curriculum and how to enhance the curriculum to match the students that's in the college. So I thought that was a very good initiative by Chandler, who was our chair of our school, to mandate the professors to be on this call so that the students can really voice their opinions on what's going on in the classrooms. Because I remember this young lady who was a second year student said that one of her classmates said some really harsh words to another classmate, and the professor didn't say anything. They just went across it and just continued with class instead of acknowledging the comments and saying that this is not appropriate here. That was the platform that the school has raised every Friday for this is specifically for those scenarios like that, where a student can come and voice their thoughts on what's going on in class, what's going on with their studios and things of that nature, so that everyone can know about it and acknowledge it right there on the spot. as well as with the curriculum, you know, for my specific studio, we have a site in Harlem, which touches us on the Harlem Renaissance, and our specific client is Langston Hughes, which is a very iconic, you know, poet in the Harlem Renaissance. Being able to learn about that and being able to learn about our history as a Black American, and also being able to introduce that to people who didn't know about the Harlem Renaissance, because that was
Exactly.
a very iconic movement in America that not that many people know about if you're not Black. So being able to, you know, introduce that was very important. I think that was an honor that FIU did that.
What is the name of that project, if you don't mind me asking? Like, what is
it's for my IBS comprehensive studio, so integrated building systems. So specifically for this studio, you know, our client is Langston Hughes, and we have to do all these construction documents on this building. And it's very helpful because we don't really get sites like this in school. So being able to have a site, you know, specifically for the Harlem Renaissance was very like iconic, I think.
Yeah, that's
Who is the professor? Who is the professor, Stanley?
Henry Rueda.
Rueda.
Yeah.
That's how I felt when I was able to secure that bid for the first Black commemorative project at the University of Miami, to where at first I'm just kind of like, okay, you know, we'll just design some benches. So originally what it was supposed to do, it's an interactive kiosk and it has 2 benches next to it. So I'm like, okay, you know, no, like I can design that by myself, you know, no problem. And then they went back, the committee went back to the school and asked for more. So it then turned in from one kiosk and 2 benches to an entire courtyard. So, yeah, so essentially they were just kind of like, how can you help us? I'm like, you know what? I got a whole group of, you know, Black architects in the making that we could really do this for you. So no questions asked. They didn't even care to look at our portfolios. They went off the strength of us trying to make it as Black architects and us trying to make, you know, that change at the University of Miami. They have sites for, you know, the Asian diaspora. They have the Jewish site. They have, of course, European, the whole school is European. And, you know, after like UM started in 1926, the first Black person didn't get there until 1969. So it was years before the first Black person came. And then they haven't commemorated it at all. Nowhere on campus is there a commemoration of a Black person outside of the athletic, you know, when UM wins all these different football things. So for that, and then on top of that, they're putting it in a historic building to where it cannot be torn down, like at all. So if they, over the years, when they renovate UM, they can't tear this building down.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, just like you said, Stanley, like to get that, it's the first of its kind, and it's definitely rewarding just to even work on something remotely that you know probably doesn't happen often. Like, that didn't happen in the Miami lifetime until now. So it's definitely cool to have those.
I think it's important we note that the universities are like traditional outlets for progressive ideas, right? So you guys are challenging the norm, and everything that you're doing, whether it be curriculum, whether it be, you know, the groups you're attending, the support you're seeking. And so I think it's really important that you're here in this space saying, this is how we're helping to make change in the future of our academic institutes. And so the time is now about 8:02. And so what we'd like to do now is open the floor up to some questions that the viewers might have. I did see a couple in the chat. And also I know, Andrew, earlier in our discussion, you and Regine, I believe, linked some resources and materials that would be useful to other students, different curriculum that highlighted Black architects or regionalism from other minority or indigenous areas.
I think Regine, you got the book? I mentioned the book and she held it up right away.
Okay, so we can showcase that, but
yeah, I think today there's little to no excuses or reasons why. I mean, you do a Google search and Black built, and that you buy it on Amazon, it's paperback, it's not expensive. And it gives you a quick survey of projects by different people. Some are more historical, some are contemporary, but people and works are out there. And there's no reason why people can't come across those. I mean, there are people like Mabel Wilson at Columbia, and there's a current book about race and modern architecture. There are extensive discussions. Craig Wilkins talks about hip hop architecture in an incredible mind twisting way. But there are a lot of discussions about issues of race and space. I think Scott Ruff just has something that just came out that was really great. I think it's called In Search of African American Space. And you know, I'm not saying everyone should buy everything from Amazon, but you can Google and find stuff, and then you can't say, you can't find the topics, and the info's out there. And I think, if students want to learn, they can find the precedents and cases of people who look just like them or people who don't.
If you'd like to support your local bookstore, you can always ask them to purchase it too. So if you don't want to, go to Amazon. So this isn't actually a question from our peers, from our attendees, but Rebecca Sanchez notes to always ask for more financial aid. And she graduated with her MArch, and the only reason she was able to afford it is because she negotiated and continued to ask for more. So I think we touched on that, but just not to be afraid to ask if you need assistance with living or materials or anything outside of just tuition alone. We had another question come in. Let's see here. Are there discussions in any of your current classes on gentrification or de jure segregation that occur at the, is this ever discussed in any of your curriculum?
I will say it's not discussed, and I'm sorry, I'm going to jump right into that, being
That's okay.
in real estate development as well as architecture. We have what we call lunchtime speakers, to where developers in the area would come in and they would talk about their developments in the area. And there was one, I don't know how familiar everyone is with Miami. There was one that is supposed to be happening in Little Haiti, and it was the developer for that. And we don't have these in our curriculum. However, there are people, not just Black people, just people who care in our classes who make it a part of the discussion. Mm-hmm. So we kind of force gentrification, the conversation of gentrification in lectures and in things of that nature. Because I certainly asked, I was disgusted. It was just kind of it was this huge development in Little Haiti, which for those who don't know, Little Haiti is the most elevated portion of Miami. And it's the part that is going to be the least affected with sea level rise.
Yeah.
So what they're trying to do is, they didn't know that years ago. So what they're trying to do is kind of brush the people out of there to where they can build up and be like, oh, well, this is the most resilient place of Miami, but that would include gentrification. So you have pretty much majority of my class just kind of like, well, we don't know about this project because it seems like it'll displace people. So to answer the question, it's not in the curriculum. However, it's definitely in the discussions, but they're forced into discussions because, again, at UM, you're dealing with people who are not sensitive to Black people, or not sensitive to designing or building in Black communities or urban communities for that matter. And they literally don't know. They don't know. So it takes the me's, the Regines or the Stanleys to be like, hey guys, let's look at it from this perspective as well, which is the whole point of NOMAs at University of Miami, to be honest.
The sad part about it, the sad part about it also is that back in the day, the only people who could afford to buy in the, if you want to call it low-lying areas now on the beach, were the Caucasians, white men, white people, white families. So everybody else, the Haitian community, this is where they went. They had to go. I don't know if that's the red line. The redlining is the phrase, but that's where they had to go and put their homes. And then now, because of sea level rise, and the beach is going to disappear in a couple of years, they realize, that's the high elevated land that we need to start developing, because people are going to start moving there. So they're going to kick out the people who were forced to live there years ago.
Right.
So bringing these ideas and conversations into our universities and the studios, is crucial to who we are as people and the people who live there, who we represent. Another question, a great question I have from Lashina, is if the dean of your respective architectural school asked you for an initiative to improve the diversity of your school, what would that be? So what do you think it would look like?
I'll give everybody else the opportunity to do that, but I've actually gotten asked that.
I'd like to talk because it's funny. I'm in HBCU, and you talk about diversity, and it's we're all Black, or we're all Black, Black and brown. So, but School of Architecture, it's more diverse. More white people, and I think and part of me, I kind of realized like I'm losing my peers. Like the people I came in with are leaving, and I know why, because they don't have the resources. And this FAMU gives a lot of money, but like you realize like it takes even more money to kind of bring people out, like to prioritize education over a job, because a job can make sure you have food, and education, well, you don't always need education to keep a job. So I think like an initiative, I want to say start early, like bring more mentors into the school to kind of keep it up. And I hate to say more scholarship because we get them, but like more scholarship, something that like, so students can at least comfortably say like, I can do this and I can pay for materials, and I'm not skimping on this thing so I can get this thing so I can be in like school. Cause I remember I knew somebody and saw the material list and day one like dropped. And I had a friend, that's my dog. I'm still close with him, but he was an out-of-state student, and he was like, I cannot continue at FAMU. So like he's home in New York, and like because he couldn't pay. So like I don't know, like I would just want to bring more like accolades, more scholarship to these, so that people can like comfortably attend school and not be in just debt. And like as much as you say like it's not our fault that we're in debt, like it almost feels it's a burden, and you don't want to stay in that burden because you want to be an architect. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that has to do, we have conversations about the number of minorities in the profession. And if we at the collegiate level or the high school level can't seem to get them to continue on because of the cost, or, if they don't have funding, then that's where the problem begins. Andrew, we're working on getting you unmuted. I know you wanted to contribute to that, but maybe someone else can speak to that in the meantime.
I definitely want to chime in on that because I actually sat one-on-one with our dean, and again, Dean Rudolph Elcree I've had a lot of different deans in a lot of different schools, and he is the best one. We were expressing to him different programs we wanted to do, partnering up with BAM Miami in terms of just branching out as a group, our NOMAS group, to different high schools, different elementary schools, different middle schools, and target Black people and target minority kids, and just literally physically show them what it is we do in architecture. So when I expressed that to my dean, he said he would believe that would help. So over the last maybe 3 or 4 years or so, our School of Architecture, they've been achieving several endowments and things of that nature. So he asked me, he was just kind of like, people aren't aware that we have more money to fund people who are not able to fund themselves, because he believes funding is the challenge as to the lack of diversity. So he was just like, whenever you branch out, just, make sure you reach out to me or someone in the administrative office. So when you guys go do these presentations and do these workshops with these younger students, to make sure we're accompanied by someone at the School of Architecture and showing them that funding is available. So that would be my initiative, to branch out and go do demos, build projects and different things of that nature with, kids in younger levels to help bring them to Miami, because he wants them.
So creating a pipeline from a young age so that there's continuity and they know to continue throughout. Stanley?
Yeah, I would say it starts with the children, honestly, the exposure, because some students don't even know about architecture and what it is. It starts with exposure. I know that SoFlo Noma has this program called BAM, BAM Miami, where I know Craig and Naomi and a couple other people go out to different, middle schools and high schools and expose architecture to them, because these students didn't even know about it. And when they do find out about it, they're like so excited about it, and they wanted more. They want more and more and more activities around it. So I say it starts with the school supporting programs like BAM, Orlando, BAM, Miami, to go out to these elementaries, these middle schools, these high schools, and introduce architecture to them, so that when it comes to college, they'll be able to know what's going on and being able to achieve being an architect.
But not only that, I think we also go out to the middle schools and elementary schools with a 3D, one of our 3D printers, and introduce the students to 3D printing. And when we go, I try to take one of the female technicians, because again, it's a male-dominated field. Construction, architecture, interior, landscape, everything it's male-dominated, you know, engineering. So I like for the female student to go, and she does the presentation. So I look around the room and I let them know that yes, anyone can do it, but also in terms of gender, it sees there's no distinction. Anybody can, you know, can rise to the top and do anything that any field that they want to do.
Representation matters.
Representation does matter.
I mean,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, Lanisha's question is a good question, and what Nunley's saying is great. But everyone, keep in mind, it's not your job to fix the school. You know, that's not your job. So when you're asked that question, be glad they're asking you, and then realize, okay, I'm going to help you do your job. So you need to give me or work with me. But think about, really, it's more than just students. When you say diversify the school, are you saying diverse students, diverse faculty, diverse ideas, and diverse content? That's three different things, and that's probably three different targets you can have. And you know, so think about what you can do, and then think about turning to places and helping them, if possible, find those places and find those answers. But keep in mind, that's the school's job. So yes, you can help them, but you don't have to do the work, and it shouldn't come out of your pockets. And you shouldn't be. Your focus is your schoolwork. I mean, they're Black faculty. Jermaine is down at UM. I know Vernell is at UF, and Trent Green's at USF, and there's.
I don't think we have any Black faculty in architecture, and please,
But
thank
people
you.
know people.
I think we have one.
So,
I think we have one.
They can find jurors, they can find faculty, they can, but like I said before, places have priorities. And
priorities, exactly.
You know, if you can find that wide receiver from Booker T. Washington High School, you can find someone to teach adjunct to teach structures class.
Oof, that's true. And so you were talking about diversity, not only in what the population looks like or the faculty, but also the content and ideas. I think that's really important. Craig actually asked, what's the demographic makeup of your different classes? Stanley, Regine, and Nonyelam.
Ours is about, out of the graduate students, it's about 100, and there's 6 of us, and I counted it. I know, Andrew, you reported it was like 117. That was last year, and I remember the 4 because there was 4 last year, but now there's 6. But yeah, that's our demographic, but that's for graduate. Of course, there are a bit more people in undergrad. I'm not too sure of that demographic, but we're less than 2%. We're not even, I don't even think we're 2%, to be honest.
Stanley, what about your classes?
Yeah, I think it's about 10 of us total. Mainly are Black women. I think it's me and another guy in the school, black guys wise, but it's more Black women than Black guys, which I'm happy about because we do need more Black women architects. But it's also kind of sad because it'll be nice to see a few more brothers in the school too.
So you got to get out there and help, encourage the youth to come to FIU and pursue the program. And we actually just surpassed in the nation 500 Black women architects. So that's an amazing feat for the industry as a whole. And I hope that all of you continue pursuing, the highest levels that you can in this industry. And so it looks like we don't have any questions at this time, but I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us this evening. It's a delicate balance between being Black, being a student, being an architect, being a professional, but all of it matters, and the way that we contribute back to the universities that we attend, or the professors who maybe have an oversight in their curriculum, not an oversight, or maybe a disregard even, but these antiquated systems that are in place, we're all challenging that. And I appreciate all of you taking the time today to discuss your experiences. I just wanted to offer any last comments from our panelists here before we close out this evening.
final thoughts.
Yeah, final thoughts.
Well, I'm definitely, like I said before, I'm a very, very, very firm advocate of lift as you climb. Don't get me wrong, I'm very, very grateful for all my mentors, but in no less, I've seen how I've been able to help other people, even if it's something as simple as showing them how to use AutoCAD or showing them how to use Rhino or whatever. And also, if you get a chance, nonyilum.com, I have the link to the petition to end SARS for those who aren't aware. It is a very, very, very big social injustice that is going on in Nigeria currently right now. And we are looking to demolish this portion of our authority. So guys, visit my website, sign the petition.
Be sure to share it in the chat for everyone.
I will.
Awesome. Any other final thoughts?
If I could say something.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I
Your
would
time.
I would just say to everyone, as a Black professional, a Black student, your voice definitely matters. No matter what program you're part of, no matter what school you're part of, no matter what's your background, your voice matters in everywhere you go. Every classroom you enter, every building you enter, all eyes are on you if you know it or not. So definitely try to be a walking example of what you would like to see in other people, because people are definitely watching you. So that's what I try to live my life by every day, is to be a shining example to people who are not able to be in the position that I am, because I'm very blessed to be in my position. So I try to be as very proactive as I can, be the most educated one in the room, as in staying up to date on what's going on in the world, staying up to date on what's going on with my peers, my mentors, and fellow classmates, so that I can respond correctly and respond actively to all issues that come my way. So I want to just say that to everyone.
That was beautiful, Stanley. Thank you for your time.
Cool.
Well, I
Thank
guess
you.
pick up.
For me,
Unfortunately,
go ahead, Regine. Go ahead, Regine.
unfortunately, to piggyback on Stanley, yeah, like, you know, people are paying attention. Your work, be consistent always. I feel like if your faculty knows that you're going to be in their face every third Wednesday, be in their face and keep it up, because they will be the one to recommend you for something. Ask questions. I always feel like asking questions makes it very clear that you're very interested, that you're paying attention, and then, you know, follow up always. You know, if you see something that you like, ask about it. You know, you see your peer doing something cool on Revit, you may not have that in your design, but ask about it, because you know what, now they want to help you. Now something you know how to do, they want to ask you for help. So yeah, you know, as Stanley said, you know, be the role model and be engaged, because it's really important that people are watching you, and you know, you want money, so be in their face.
Even if you don't want money, but you just want to be a good example. But yes.
I 100% agree with that. People are watching us, whether we like it or not. When we go outside of our doors, we can't take off our skin. Say we wear the same color every day, 24/7.
Yeah.
And so we have to be an example. And the way you want people to treat you, that's the way I treat them.
Yeah.
So no one is better than anyone else. The same way you speak to the custodian person is the same way you'll speak to the dean, and same way you speak to the president. No one's better than anyone else. If you give them respect, you demand the same type of respect. However, you know, sometimes we don't want to seem the angry Black person, because when you ask too many questions, eyes roll. However, sometimes just know when to speak and how to speak, and why what you're saying, when you're saying why you're saying it. So with that, I just say always be true to yourself and be proud.
You know, many students out there, you know, they know they walk through the architecture building and the only other Black person in the building is a janitor. And you know what I'm talking about. But I tell my son, you know, when you do excellent work, your skin color and how you stand out is your superpower. They're going to remember when you do great work.
Yes.
I mean, they're going to remember who you are and the great work you do. So just grind and focus on doing great things and outwork other people. You can outwork them, you know, that doesn't cost money, and just put your head down. Since I'll follow like Miss UM there and do the shout out next. FAMU is joined with Howard University. We're doing a 4-part discussion on design justice. Next week, Wednesday, it's called Anti-Racist Design Praxis. And we'll have
Wow.
a number of guests, but it's you know, you can look on our school's Facebook page, and it's free Zoom, almost as good as BAM, but you know, we're just trying to be. I would just close and say, you know, you guys can make change, and you know, wash your hands and go vote. That's the two things. Wash your hands and go vote, people.
That's a perfect closing. I love that. We got another event that we can look forward to, and to wash our hands and go vote.
Wait, Regine, I'm sorry. I have one thing to say to you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, of course.
If there is anyone at FAMU that you feel that they want, or if they want to start NOMAS at FAMU, I have the whole blueprint. Let me know. I would love to share it, because I would love to see NOMAS at FAMU and Bethune. Like, it'd be great.
Really interested. I was talking to Chen, you know, the last time we were speaking, I was like, hey, what's NOMAS like? Because he knows about it.
Well, okay. Well, now I know. I will email you the blueprint, because I know Stanley and we did it together. So I definitely.
I don't want to get certain alumni mad at me, like Dr. Ronald Lumpkin, LaTanya Sims, Michael and Jermaine and others. But according to one of our faculty, the first ever NOMA chapter was a collection of FAMU students that went to a conference in Louisiana, Dr. Lumpkin says. And the first NOMA student rep was LaTanya Sims at the Atlanta conference in about 92. And I'm happy to say that a certain group of young ladies have met with the dean and talked about a Women in Architecture chapter at the school. So like Stanley said, the sisters are running the world. Running architecture.
That's another big one.
Take over everything here too.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Taking over.
Yes, I'll send you an email.
Well, that's the point of this whole panel, right? We wanted to be conversational, but like as a resource to everyone. We've got Nonye offering assistance to Regine, Stanley and Nonye talking on the weekly basis, figuring out how they can, you know, perfect what they're doing down in South Florida. And Andrew and Jackie, thank you so much for joining us and offering your insight into the profession, or the, you know, academic world. We just want to thank you so much. It means so much to me to have all of you this evening, and our attendees as well. And we hope that you join us next month for our next panel discussion. We're hoping to get that one in before the holidays so that everyone has time to kind of decompress and relax. But we ask that you join us for next month's episode of Inside Voices Black Thoughts. Have a nice evening.